Welcome, everybody. My name is Mina Jane. I'm the director of the Ashland Public Library in Massachusetts, and I'm so excited to be here with Sadie Hartmann at Mother Horror and Jody of at Red Reviews to talk about feral and hysterical. I mean, if with a title like that, like you just have to tune in, right? So we're going to be chatting with Jody's going to be chatting with Sadie for about 40 minutes, and we will take lots of questions from the audience. So feel free to put any questions you have in the Q&A, and we will get to them in about 40 minutes. I wanted to say thanks to the Friends of the Ashland Public Library for supporting all of our programs. We couldn't do this fun stuff without them. I'd like to thank Sadie for letting us share this program with other libraries because, of course, when libraries work together, we make magic. And, I don't want to leave Jody out. She agreed as well. So
I think I agreed to anything. I'm pretty sure I was forced into it.
the power of libraries. If you want to buy signed books by Sadie, you can do that through Aesop's Fable. I'll throw a link into the chat or in the recap email I sent to everybody after the program. So without further ado, I'll just say that Jody is one of my favorite people. She does a monthly book recommendation program for us. She does horror and thriller, and her love of cults is legendary. That's all I'm going to say. And what I found out recently is that when Jody wants book recommendations, she actually goes to Sadie. So I feel like this is like a dream come true, dream team, and I cannot wait for this conversation. So Jody, take it away. I'm so excited to hear everything you all have to
I
say.
just want to say that I feel honored and privileged that I was asked to come along for this ride because I have been stalking Sadie for a while and her book recs are like, I really do look at her page every day. And then when I have a problem or a book I need to talk about, I go to Sadie. So she has like I know it says she's mother horror, but she's the queen of horror recommendations. So she's my go-to for everything. So to have the honor of talking to my queen is just amazing. I know the first time I met you, I fangirled over you. I stopped you on a staircase and I'm like, hug me, let's talk, let's take a picture. I still haven't gotten over that. I'm still very much in that zone. And you're just a normal person. You are now an author. You have she runs or she's a co-founder of Nightworms, which if you're not aware of what Nightworms is, it is a monthly book subscription for horror readers. It's like book of the month on crack, and it's freaking amazing because like I've gotten a couple of them. You get coffees and stickers and bookmarks, and then amazing books that she curates herself. So like it's like the book you need to get. But she's a mom. She's just a brilliant horror. You're a fan, and that's the best part is that you're a fan that decided to write a book for fans.
Yeah.
That is like you're living the dream, Sadie.
Yes. I mean, if somebody told me when I was, 13 that I could make a living and have a career reading books and recommending horror to people, I would be like, that's not a job, but it is a
It's
job.
the
I'm doing
dream.
it.
Yeah. Oh my God. So before we get into your book, I do, you probably weren't prepared for this, but how did you get Nightworms started? Because I am a fan of Nightworms, your book subscription. So how did you get that started?
Yeah,
Did that
so
come after you became a bookstagram or was that before a bookstagram?
no, it was during the process of having a bookstagram. Like we Ashley and I, my business partner Ashley, and
Who's
I.
awesome. I follow her too.
Yes, thank you. We met online on Bookstagram, just, commenting on each other's stuff. And we were both reps for a company that was doing a horror book subscription company. And they kind of imploded, and did not really treat their customers well, and just kind of left a big hole in that space of needing a subscription box that was focused on horror. So people kept nominating us to do that, like, because, they were used to seeing us talk about that company. And we were both kind of hesitant to jump into something like that. Like, I never thought I would be somebody that would own my own business. So once we started talking about it seriously, though, it happened really fast. We took our first 100 pre-orders on Halloween Day of 2018. So
Oh.
it's been a long time.
And it's just getting better and better. I've seen your pictures of like a packed truck of just mailers going out. Like, I don't know how you find the time in the day to do that and do everything else in your life on top of the subscriptions. And then even like, how do you narrow it down to the books that you're going to pick each month?
Yeah, we have a really fun time. I mean, mostly it's all books. We have these meetings that we decide on what books that we want to carry in the package. And then a lot of it comes down to just like logistics and dates and can we get it on time and can we get book plates? And we like when everything kind of matches and looks cohesive and has a similar theme. We have artists that are doing the theme graphics for us and the custom bookmarks, and then we have artists doing the stickers. So we just kind of build a package around all of that and have everything coordinated and organized each month. And then we have family and friends that come over on book packing day. We make it like a little party. We listen to music, we have coffee, we have breakfast. We kind of like just talk about movies and books and things that we're into and have a great conversation. So all the packages are packed with that vibe going on, having a fun time. And we work really hard, just curating these packages with books that we want to read ourselves.
I love that. I love that. That's getting books out to the people that want them. But now you're writing books.
Yes.
And when you first came out with 101 horror books to read before you die, I was so impressed. I'm like, she did it. She's taken all of this knowledge of the horror books and put it into one book. I'm like, this is the best reference book. I thought, it really couldn't get any better than this book when you first put this out. And then just recently, you came out with what I thought is very appropriately timed, by the way.
Yeah.
Feral and Hysterical. And this, first of all, I need to talk to you about the cover art before we really get into this book. I am obsessed with this cover art. Like I think I mentioned to you before, I really feel like you need to get t-shirts and hoodies with this like on the back because it's just like, it's absolutely gorgeous. It's just, so you got to pick out the cover art for this, right?
Yeah, so my team at Page Street Publishing gave me a list of artists that they felt they would be, able to work with. And we went through and I just kind of like picked all the favorites and then they went and asked like who has availability to do 24 interior full page illustrations plus the cover. And we scored Mariah Amaya, who's out of Argentina, and she killed it. Like every time they sent me artwork, they were like, "Do you have any feedback, any changes?" And I was like, "No, everything's perfect right out of the gate." So
I mean, it's just like it's that. It almost reminds me of the block printing. Are you aware what that is?
Yes.
Yeah, it kind of has that vibe to it, which has just always been so super spooky. I freaking love it. It's gorgeous. And you have all of these great little pictures put in throughout the book.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that all books should be illustrated. Like
I
I've never
I feel the same way.
grown up out of that. I love when there's pictures with the story. Yeah, it's so
I don't know how many times I've read a book and I'm like, I need fan art. I need to, because I know what I'm picturing to be the main character to look like, but then I want to see what other people are seeing. Like, who is it? Gage Greenwood wrote a book, his last book, the Block Island book, and he's got these horrible, evil monsters. And I'm like texting him, and I'm like, I need a visual of what this monster looks like because what I'm seeing might be different than what everybody else is seeing. And it's got this like horribly long, hideous face, and I'm just like, I just finished The Veil by Jonathan Jans.
Oh yeah.
Did you read that?
No, not yet.
Oh my God. Okay, so like it's aliens. The aliens in this book, the way that he describes them, I'm trying to get a mental picture. And then it's like sort of like this bright, vibrant color. I go on little side tangents, by the way, Sadie. So if you feel like I'm being
I totally
too much,
understand.
Let me know. But I definitely need that picture. So like even with like a regular book, I wish that they put little pictures in. I think that's super, super important.
Yes, agree.
So I'm glad that you went that route. Now, another thing that I'm really excited about this book is, so I'm looking through it and I'm totally getting the whole vibe and I'm going through each page and I'm like, what'd be really great is that when you're looking through this book, like you've got the picture of the book and then your thoughts and the synopsis of the book. I'm like, it needs a little check mark there, like a little box to put a check in. And I'm like, why didn't she do that? Why is she killing me? Get to the back of the book. And there's a mother effing checklist. And I was like, You absolutely thought of everything. Let me get to it. I have to show this because, oh my God, it's just like, it blew my mind. If you don't have this book, you need to get it strictly for the checklist. Like, look at that. You can put your own check marks in these beautiful, but like, also you need to take in consideration the amount of books that are in here. So,
There's
like,
over
I don't
200.
know. Oh my God. So I thought I was a big reader until I looked at this book. So I always try to support women in horror, right? And I'm reading this book, reading, glancing, casually slipping through. This is something that you can take your time and go through, or when you're having a cup of coffee and you want to just breeze through something. And I'm like, okay, so maybe for every section of this book, I've read about one book out of every section. And you're
Yeah.
giving like 5 or 6 books in each section. I know nothing about horror compared to
Yeah,
you.
yeah, it's interesting because with 101 horror books to read before you're murdered, I had like a list of 101 titles that I recommended. And it was pretty easy to compile because I had been reading, voraciously for a long time in the genre of horror. So I just put together a list of the books that I felt were really iconic to me that I would tell others to read, especially if you're new or if you've been in the genre for a while and need something new. Something that you haven't thought after. So that would be 101, where it was just a definitive list of, you know, things that I would recommend sorted into subgenres like supernatural, paranormal, creepy kids, that kind of thing. Whereas Feral and Hysterical is, first of all, celebrating women in horror, but also, non-binary and queer voices too. And the list was ambiguous. My publisher told me I could put however many I wanted. It could be new, it could be old, like whatever I wanted. And it's focused more on how I read, which some people say that they're mood readers, and I say that I'm a vibes reader. And I
Mm-hmm.
explain that a little bit in the beginning of the book, but essentially, I don't ever have reading slumps or go through a dry spell where I can't find something that grabs my attention. Because after I finish a book that I'm really obsessed with, I jump into another one with similar themes, tropes, tones, voice, and make a conversation happen. And so that's
Okay.
how I wrote this book, where it was like, if I'm in a setting that I'm really enjoying, like if I'm in Scotland or Cornwall or I'm in a Gothic tower and there's a romance and there's a murder and a mystery and ghosts, and I loved it. Why would I go jump into apocalyptic fiction? You know what I'm saying? Like, I want more of what's giving me life. And so I jump into more of the same. And that's how this book is curated.
Do you get burnout by doing that?
I have never, knock on wood, had burnout. Like I've never had a slump. I've never had burnout. I will say that prioritizing voices, especially just like reading back to back women, um, it rearranged something in me. It kind of changed my brain chemistry, and it's really hard for me to read through a male window now. So I can't, that male gaze feels a little more alien to me. So
Yep.
I'll pick it up and be like, this is like not what I want. So I have like you asked me if I read Jonathan Jan's. I've read all of Jonathan Jan's books except for the last like few because I've been so preoccupied with women lately. So
Yeah. That's not a bad thing. I'm all about female writers. So talk to me about Feral and Hysterical. Why women? Why now?
well, interestingly enough, I did not know that this was on our horizon. Everything that's been happening lately, not to get too out in the weeds politically, but I mean, women women are a marginalized community group. We have always had to fight for our voices to be heard. We have always been under the thumb of oppression. When you look at history and you look at earning our vote through, fighting for our vote and, having our, not even having like our own checking account, um, not getting equal pay, equal rights. Um, Even like back when you look through history about like the Salem witch trials, I talk about it briefly in the book, but they weren't killing witches, they were killing women and hunting
Yep.
women. So it's a world that we live in where we are prey in a predatory environment. And I felt like who better to write horror stories, stories of horror, than women who have always been in this position of running for ourselves, running for our lives, and survival. Tales of survival, tales of motherhood, tales of, the society thinking they know what's best for our bodies, having our agency stripped away, having, everything. And so Feral and Hysterical was sort of born out of a need to prioritize women in a male space. Horror is predominantly male. The biggest author of all time, the most recognizable author of all time is Stephen King, who has completely dominated the horror genre and influenced everyone, me included. That's how I came into horror was through Stephen King. And I think it's been really hard for women to push up. And in the last 5 years, women have been predominantly winning
They've
everything.
been breaking down the damn door.
Yeah,
I
I would
remember
say.
when I was in my teens and I started reading horror. Well, not it's not go as far. I was 11, and I couldn't find. There were no, not that I was aware of, not that was bigly put into the library or on the shelves. There were no women horror writers. It was all Stephen King, and it was Dean Koontz, and it was John Saul, who I absolutely loved, and I was where I found my horror love, but there was no women, and it was very much like you're getting this from a man's perspective, I needed that feminine touch, which brings me, and I don't think you quite cover it in this book because this is all women in general, but I want to ask you about pink horror. I know that you brought this up on Instagram a little while ago, and I had mentioned, I had dropped a little note that to me pink horror is written by women for women, mostly for women. Men can read it and appreciate it, the ones that we love. And it's mostly with a female protagonist in the horror book, and I am drawn to that. That's like Rachel Harrison type books. I feel like she writes horror for women. She would tell you she doesn't, and anybody can read her books, but I think I appreciate and love her books more because I feel like they're written for women.
Sure.
How do you feel about pink horror? How do you classify pink horror? Do you even think pink horror, or do you want to call it like I called it chick horror for women, or it was like comfy horror, or like cozy horror, or what do you give me your take?
So basically, I just want to like frame it properly for everyone who's watching and, for myself included to articulate this in a way that makes a lot of sense to everyone. But when I was, 13, 14, reading It by Stephen King, at the time as a child, I wasn't thinking, oh, these are boys on bikes, these are boys' struggles, these are boys' issues. I wasn't thinking that. It was just more of like, in a general sense, these are young people going through a lot of trauma and then also having to fight a demonic clown at the same time. But then as you get a little older and have a bigger perspective, it's appropriate as an adult woman to read and see myself represented in horror. I when I read it now, I'm like, there's a few things that he got wrong with the female character, and there's
We're not always the freaking victim.
yeah, yeah, and there's boys on bikes, and girls rode bikes too. I was a girl crew
I
member.
got a banana seat.
Exactly. We rode our bikes. We went through neighborhoods. We, ditched the dog that wanted to kill us. Like we had the same childhood. Like we did things too. And then as an adult woman, like I want to hear about other adult women. It doesn't have to always be that, but like I do want it. So pink horror to me, interestingly enough, being on Bookstagram, I always thought it was just pink books. Like for the longest time, I just thought, hey, there's not a lot of pink horror books. Like I'm gonna collect them and put them in a picture and it looks really cute. And then later, I think it's kind of been co-opted into, no, it's mostly horror written by women for women. with the assumption that it's for everyone, essentially, because it's good shit. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, if you have a stack of books that you read in a single year and they're all men, you just didn't read any women. That's essentially what that says to me. Like, if you're like, yeah, my top 10 favorite books of this year, all guys, no, something's missing because there's women out there who are writing really good horror. And like you said, Rachel Harrison would be a good example of books that center the female experience, center the friendships, the toxicity that goes on in culture around our conversations. Like, yeah, that's a really good example of men can read it and do. They love her and they love her books. So it's not exclusionary. It's just making sure that representation is there.
You said it so much better than I do. I'm just like, I want books for me. I don't care about anybody else. Give it for me.
Yeah. Well, it's important.
So I want to talk about how you chose. Now you're calling it vibes, but I think it's subgenres for to break down this book. Because you have damsels and demons. You've got, oh my God, there's so many. You've got tropes in here. What is it? This was like the best title ever. The tropiest gothic horror trope ever. Like, seriously, like that's a stream of thought. Like, I think I need that on a t-shirt. Like, how
Okay,
did
but
you
that's
pick?
not really a subgenre if I can push back a tiny bit. They're really micro niche subgenres.
You're so
So,
fancy.
I mean, they're so like let's just put it this way. After I watched Sinners, I wanted to read books like Sinners. Like I
Yep.
wanted books about, vampirism and monsters as a symbol, as a metaphor for colonization and taking culture from a people group and, like I wanted part of that conversation. So if I was going to put a list like that in Feral and Hysterical, I would add, The Reformatory by Tananarive Due, and I would add Ring Shout, although he's a male author. But I'm just talking about in general books that you could read that were like Sinners. I would add Ring Shout by DeJelly Clark, and I would put, there's a book by Tracy Cross called Root Work, about
Got
witchcraft
that
in
yet.
Louisiana. So that's what vibes reading to me is like a wavelength. It's books that are conversating around the same themes, tropes, and tone. And it's different than like subgenre because subgenre would be Southern Gothic. Well, there's a
Yep.
lot of books in Southern Gothic. Like, where are you gonna go? And so this book drills down, down, down. It's like, no, let's do that vibe of like that show, True Detective, and let's do cults. And let's do a little bit of demonic worship and let's do detectives who are doing an investigation. Like, let's really pull in 5 books with that conversation happening.
You did all the legwork of someone going down the Google rabbit hole and
Yeah.
narrowed it down to like 4 or 5, 6 most important books on your recommendations that fit that vibe, that feel that need. It's a need. That's what it is. It's a need. It's what you're
Yeah.
feeling. Like I walk up and I do this thing where I stand in front of my bookshelf and I let my books talk to me. And I'm like, what am I feeling? What do I need right now? And I'll do this thing where I'm standing in front of my bookshelves and I'm waiting for them to call me. And like, I really want them to just like pop out of the bookshelf and hit me in the head. It doesn't happen. So it becomes a 20-minute long staring at the shelves. And my husband's like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like waiting for the books to talk to me. So I understand this would save me the 20 minutes of staring at my book. I'd be like, okay, I need something witchy. As Mina would tell you, I need culty. I need culty all the time. So I would, just go to the cult section, women in cults, because women are always in the cults. Women
Yeah,
are always
yeah.
the victims of the cults. You narrow it down. It's just like this is like a brilliant reference book for readers. Like seriously, Sadie, you like chef's kiss with this one.
Thank you. I had a lot of fun putting these lists together. Like, they're all lists that I've kind of gone on. They're all like little adventures that I've gone on. Like, one of the first lists is about, female vampires in lesbian relationships and where drinking each other's blood is like a metaphor for, passion and sex. So it's like a sapphic vampire list. It could because I got hooked on it. I read like 5 books in a row with that thing going on, and I was like, more people probably want sapphic vampires, so I'm just gonna go for it.
That's just, it's brilliant. You really, I don't know how many, you could probably tell me, but how many different, God, you have at least 30
Ish, yeah.
classifications in here, rabbit
Yeah,
holes to
I
go
would
down.
say because the interior illustrations, I think there's like 25, and she didn't do every list, but there is a picture for almost every list.
I absolutely, I love that. So you also have scattered intermittently in between all of your book recommendations, you have little, what is it, thoughts from female writers. Go into that for me, because I saw
Essays.
you got Alma Katsu in there.
Yes.
You got some heavy hitters. Like, first of all, how did you approach them? How did that all happen? And then, like, was that important to you in this book?
So I've developed relationships with a lot of authors over the last like 10 years simply because I started out, Nightworms was the idea of, like a book club basically where we were just reviewing books and such. And then Nightworms happened as a book club that goes out to others. So I've been having conversations with publishers and authors for Nightworms, securing orders and book plates and, talking to authors about you know, the whole process of buying their book for Nightworms. And then I review it a lot as well. I'm constantly reading. I'm on like 130 books for this year. So when I post about like a review and it's a good review, I'll tag the author or I'll just put it on Instagram and the author will see it and like thank me for the review or comment on it. So I'm having a lot of conversations with authors. Plus, I get asked when they come here, to do in conversation partnering with them at like a bookstore or the Seattle Public Library. And you just kind of develop like a rapport with the authors. And I never really say it's like a friendship. I am friends with some of them, but really, with the parasocial relationships that happen online, like I really try to separate myself from like a chumminess with a lot of authors because I want to stay true and honest to my work. And like, if
Mm-hmm.
I don't like a book, like, sorry if we're friends, but I'm gonna tell people like I don't like this book. Anyway, that was a side rant. So yeah, I asked the authors that we've basically all been in conversation in email. The only one I hadn't been in conversation was Laura Purcell. Laura Purcell has an essay in this book, and she is a British author, and her and I had never had a conversation before. So I actually emailed her agent and asked if she would talk about Gothic horror. And she loved the idea and said that she would. Alexis Henderson, I'm emailed her, Alma Katsu, Christina Henry, I wanted her to talk about fantasy. Alma's really great at talking about historical fiction. And yeah, and then Ray Wild is an up-and-coming author who writes from a queer perspective, and I don't have a queer narrative because I am straight, so I can't really talk about queer from a queer POV. So I wanted Ray to talk about queer horror from her point of view. And that's really the reason why the essays are in there. There's essays in 101 Horror Books Tree Before You're Murdered as well, because they're the authority on the topic. I'm not. So I invited them to be the voice that I felt needed to be in the book.
I like that. I really like that. See, this is the thing. It all comes back to you're a fan and you respect. I love that because even though you're not awesome because you wrote a book, you're still a fan at heart, and you give the respect out, and I love that, Sadie.
Thanks. Like I don't even know if I want to write another book because it gets in the way of my reading. Like I really just want to read.
Like, well, that's the thing. Like, so, like, I'm assuming there was no research put into this book because these are all things you've read.
No, I read almost 150 books for this book.
That's not research. You enjoyed every second of it.
I loved every minute of it, but I wanted to make sure that like some of the really iconic books that I hear about all the time that I just haven't read that I read them. Like, I didn't want to overlook certain books and have people be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe she didn't include Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier." I was like, "Okay, I did read it, but I was like in high school, so I had to reread it." Which I fell in love with it all over again. I read really widely. I wanted to make sure I included some translated fiction because I didn't want it just to come from like a Western perspective. So, I read a lot of books from Argentina. I read a lot of translated books, including books from Norway, books from Germany. Like, I wanted there to be a good
Did you
representation.
sleep?
I I don't sleep. No, I get up at 4. I get up at 4 a.m. every day. So
So
I
were
can
these
sleep
when you were
more.
reading your books for this, are you doing them on audio or print or both?
Oh man, listen. I just recently in the last 2 years have gotten into audiobooks to the point where
Life changing.
half of the books I'm reading are audio, and it is a much better experience. It's so immersive. I'm telling you, if you want to read Isabel Cañas, if you want to read Stephen Graham Jones, if you want to read Sylvia Moran
Oh,
Garcia, you have to listen to it. It's like the pronunciation of the names and the places is
yes.
spot on, the voices, the authenticity. It's like a movie in your brain. Like, I can't believe I've wasted so much of my life not
I
listening to.
fought it. I fought it for so long. I have a librarian friend and she's like, "Would you just get into audiobooks?" And I'm like, "No,
Yeah.
because it's not reading." I was steadfast. It's not reading unless you can smell a book. It's not reading. And then I did it. I think it was during COVID when I first did my first audio, and it was a game changer.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can even completely nerd out and you can rent the borrow whatever the ebook from your library and the audiobook. Okay. Hoopla is great for this. If you
Love
haven't read
Hoopla.
Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, you can right now get on your Hoopla, get the audiobook and get the ebook, and then you put your headphones on, you have a cup of tea, you read that book with your eyeballs while you're listening to it, and it
A
is
hug.
like 2 hours can go by and you're just gone. Like
So
you're,
I think I mentioned to you before, my daughter has ADD and she can't focus on, she's 18. How old is she? She's 18 now. But they found out pretty early on that she couldn't focus on reading a book, so she wouldn't absorb it. So she would have to do an audiobook at the same time as reading a book, and she would super absorb it. And like that's where she found her love of reading, was doing the double thing. And for me, I thought that was going to be like too much, as because I've always been a singularly reader. But when you combine the two, all I need is someone spritzing water on my face or blowing
yeah,
air on me so I can have like a 4D experience.
yeah,
It's just like, and the thing is, I don't know. I just recently learned that there are people out there that can't see the book in their mind,
uh-huh.
which makes me so sad.
Yeah, I've heard
It's like
that.
colorblind. That makes me so sad for those people because I am literally looking at my wall, not seeing my wall. I'm seeing that book through like a movie lens while
Yeah.
listening and reading. It's like, it's disgusting. My whole body, like you could seriously like murder me and I would be still in the book.
That is exactly how it is. Very, very immersive. And there are actually a few authors that are a little bit challenging for people to get into. Stephen Graham Jones is actually one of them. Maybe one of the main ones that I hear all the time because I recommend him all the time. And people are
I
always like,
don't get
just don't get it. I can't get with it. And I said, listen to me. Take the audiobook of Mapping the Interior or take the audiobook for, Killer on the Road. Do Killer on the Road because it's new and it's a slasher and it is so visceral. And you listen to the audiobook while you're on a walk and you are going to be looking around for that freaking truck and that serial killer
I
because
listened
it
to it
is,
while driving, which was stupid because I have a fear of tractor trailer trucks as it is. So it's like that whole, I'm listening to that book and I'm like, why? Why does he do this? Why does he put this into, oh,
yeah, it's terrifying. I listened to it on a walk and I was like, every leaf that crunched or twig that snapped, I was like, I'm gonna be murdered. So good.
so I would like to know, um, What is your who? Oh, this is gonna tick you off. You're gonna be like, Jody, why you put me on the spot? Give me your number three top female horror writer that are your favorite. Three. You gotta narrow it down. Quick, 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 quick. Don't really think about it.
Okay, definitely Sylvia Moreno Garcia.
Yes.
I was like an auto buy author. Like every time something comes out, I have to have it. A.G. Slatter, which people would say, is this horror? It's kind of like a blend of fantasy, horror, mystery, witchy shit. She writes in this connected universe called the Sourdough universe. The
I
first
saw
book
that
that
one
I
wrong.
read was called The Path of Thorns. I quote from it in the like dedication area of Feral and Hysterical. She's a new favorite for me. So if you like fantasy, if you like mystery, if you like strong female protagonists, if you like vampires, if A.G. Slatter is the business, okay? Like she's the thing. So Sylvia Moreno Garcia, A.G. Slatter. Ooh, it's so hard to pick. There's so many new authors too that are blowing my mind with their debut books, but I'm not
I
gonna
know.
just the first book. So I'll go with Tananarive Due. I think where the Reformatory kicked it by Stephen King out of my top book slot. It was up there for a really long time. It was the standard. And then the Reformatory by Tananarive Due just like boop.
That was so. I just read that. I think it was the end of last year, and that was my first exposure to her. That was mind. I did that one on audio. Did you do that one on
Ooh,
audio? My
no,
flippin'
I
god, like that was a game changer. I believe it was it multiple narrators? If it wasn't, you felt like there was.
yeah.
It was so well done. Oh,
Yeah, that book gave me massive amount of anxiety and then also just like super emotional. But she does a lot of good short stories. If you just want to check her out and see if you like her, you can get Ghost Summer, which is a collection of her stories. And she writes in a wide variety of different genres. So there's some just like traditional horror, sci-fi, fantasy a little bit. And then she also has another book called The Between, which was her debut, and it reads like she's a seasoned professional. But definitely get The Between. That was a really good one too. And she has some paranormal series too. I think this first one's called My Soul to Keep, and then it goes on in a series of like three or four books. So, oh, and The Good House is her haunted house book.
I have that one. I just acquired that, so that's on my list of backlist books I want to dive into next.
Yeah,
So,
nice.
what was I going to say? So, how do you feel about short stories and novellas, as opposed to like, do you use them as a palate cleanser? How do you feel about them compared to like a good thick book?
Yeah, I do love short stories and novellas because I feel like their short form is the perfect length for horror because they can keep that thread of tension going the entire time. If you just have like 100 pages, it can start right in the beginning and just keep that fear going the whole, 90 pages or whatever. So I love it because I think some of the short stories are extremely terrifying. Stephen Graham Jones writes some really scary stories too. I think he excels in the short story form. So you can pick up a collection of
I
his.
don't agree with you on that.
Oh, really?
I was just
Why?
reading, what is it, Zombie Sharks?
Oh, I haven't read that. Is that
I,
short stories?
it's short stories, and I picked it up. I'm like, zombie sharks, this is going to be amazing. And it's a whole
Yeah.
bunch of short stories, but it reads like a stream of consciousness and random thoughts from him. I'm more
Oh,
into his world building, his
interesting.
deep dive into the characters, like, with Jade Daniels. Like, he does so good focusing on one main character. The short stories aren't enough for me.
Interesting. Yeah, I like to recommend short stories for people who haven't yet tried an author. And then yeah, palette cleanser is a really good like if you want to read an anthology. I do short stories and anthologies during the holidays. I like to read short stories in Halloween time because it's a really busy season. A lot of people are out doing a lot of things and you can just kind of like nibble at horror. And then I read short ghost stories at Christmas time because it's traditional. That's what all the Victorians did is they sat around and told ghost stories on Christmas Day. I drug my family out to see Nosferatu on Christmas Day when it opened. And that's perfect because there's so many anthologies out there with ghosts. And so you can just read little tiny stories all through Christmas.
Sam, all about Krampus.
I did not like Krampus by Bram. I did not like that book.
Oh my God, I want to beat you. Good thing
I
I'm not
know, it
standing
just
right
was
next to
like
you.
I I don't know, it was too modern. I thought it was going to be more of the folklore. I thought it was going to be like really woodsy and like creepy, but it wasn't. It was like super modern.
You wanted Slewfoot, but Krampus.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I thought I loved Krampus, but
Sorry.
Slewfoot is
Sorry.
definitely my number one book by Bram, and I did that one on audio. And the narrator sang. She literally sang parts of the book, and it was like a little tiny Tinkerbell in your ear. It was
Oh,
beautiful.
wonderful. I love that book. If you haven't read Slewfoot by Bram, Halloween is the perfect time.
All of his books are like honestly all year. I'm horror all year. It's funny because do you read Christmas themed horror books around Christmas, or do you read them all year?
I am stockpiling my Christmas themed horror, and it's not really just Christmas, it's more like Yule. So I like to read a lot of witchy stuff. I like Gothic, well, actually backpedal into like August a tiny bit, but as soon as fall hits on the 22nd, I put all of my traditional horror away and I only read Gothic during the fall winter season. I just want windswept cliffs and foggy nights, and like that's all. I can't read traditional horror during the fall at all.
I'm picturing you in like a white nightgown running through your backyard in the mist with your book and like, oh,
Yes,
it's my time of the year.
that's
I can see that.
exactly. I love it. I read The Silent Companions 2 years ago, during the fall, and I haven't stopped since. I have not stopped the Gothic season, in the fall ever. Like the minute it's the 22nd, I'm like, Gothic.
So for so totally different for me. When fall hits, I'm all about slashers, and I mean I'm slasher all year long, but I feel like I focus more on it in that season, and I'm all about like I want the witchiness, I want the woods, I want to be in the woods. When I think fall, I think woods. I'm very much petrified of the woods,
Yeah, me too.
so all the books that take place when Blair Witch came out, did you see it?
Yes.
Did it scare the crap out of you?
Yes.
Okay, I got a lot of crap for not being scary. For me, I grew up in the woods. I made forts in the woods. It was I would find abandoned because we lived in this like we had what you God, we have so many woods. And I would find the abandoned buildings in the woods and I'd play in them. Never once thinking there was anything bad out there. And then I saw that movie. I was in my early 20s, I think, when it came out. We left the theater and my date, he's like, well, that sucked. I'm like, I'm sitting in the passenger seat and I'm like, that was terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah, that was terrifying. Yeah, just to make a long story short, my husband worked outdoors and it was the day after we watched that and he got sent to do some phone line repair out in the woods, like with manzanita scrub all around him. And he was just like, I can't do this. It's like terrifying. It was like too rural, too alone, like too crazy.
There was another, what was it? Anya wrote, was it Seed? No, the devil crept in.
Oh,
One
that's
of her
what.
books, yeah, that takes place in the woods. And that was another one where I was so totally like, I was feeling it and I was smelling it and I was like, woods are freaking scary. So I'm like, oh, I got to do an Instagram picture. I'm going to take my son out into the woods and smother him in blood and give him a hand to chew on. And we're going in the woods. And he's like, Mom, why are we going in the woods? And I'm like, because I need to take a scary picture in the woods. I'm like, just go with it. He's like, I don't want to go in the woods. I'm like, you're going to go in the woods because I need this picture for Instagram. And I'm like, and this book terrified me, so I need you to be terrified.
Oh
Like,
my God.
seriously, my kids don't get it. They're brought up and we live in a village in a little rural town, but I don't really have any woods. They didn't grow up in the woods. I grew up in the woods. So for me, it was like, oh, woods.
I love it. So
That's so off
visceral.
topic from your book. Like I said, I warned you ahead of time. I have ADHD, so we go off topic quite a bit.
That's fine because it's Q&A time. So we're gonna go all over the place.
Is it? Mina, where are you?
I'm right here. I am like just sitting here giggling like crazy because you guys are so funny. Um, I am also terrified of the woods, so that might be more of a snake phobia, but there's the woods. Um, okay, so we don't have any questions yet. If you guys have questions in the audience, please put those in the Q&A, which is a button at the bottom of your screen. I will moderate them. But I would like to crowdsource a question of what was the first book of horror that you read that you remember? I'm sure we had horror stories like way before we remember, but what was the first horror book that you read? Sadie, what was it? Do you remember?
Well, yes. I was reading a lot of John Bellairs. He wrote The House with the Clock in the Walls. Yeah, so
Hmm.
I was reading a lot of his books when I was a kid. And it was like, definitely primed me for horror. But the first like adult horror book I read was Salem's Lot by Stephen King because my mom said I could read anything on her bookshelf, and that one looked the least scary because if you'll
Oh
remember
my God, that might be one of his scariest.
yeah, I know. And if you look at the picture on the cover of the original, it's basically just like a black book with Salem's Lot and a little church in the O. So it looked the least scary. I thought I could handle it. And I was mortified. It was like, it's really one of the scariest he wrote. Yeah. But I loved it.
I know. I remember scary stories to tell in the dark, Carrie. She's in the chat.
Oh, yeah.
And those covers
Love them.
were, yeah. Jody, what
Yeah.
was the first book you remember reading? Horror book.
Well, I mean, there are people that classify VC Andrews as horror. Oh, I think someone's trying to call me. Really, people? VC Andrews was classified as horror. So if you want to classify her as horror, Flowers in the Attic was definitely my first step into it. But I don't really classify her as horror at all.
Mhm.
So I would say it was R.L. Stine, his Fear Street books. That was my stepping stone. And then once I read all of those that the library had, which was like 15 books at the time, I literally would take out a stack this big and get them read in a day and come back and ask for more. That's when I went over to Stephen King. And again, I was 11, and my
Oh my
parents
God.
did not monitor what I read, which I'm extremely thankful for.
Yeah.
And I picked up Carrie.
Oh, that's a good one.
Carrie was my first King, and that was awesome. I would not have done Salem's Lot. Sadie, you're on crack. That's like, God, I didn't read that till I
Well,
was like Seasons King.
I'm also like almost 50. I'll be 50 next year. And so I did not have R.L. Stein's Goosebumps. I did not have any Christopher Pike. We did have scary stories to tell in the dark, but we only had the one edition. So I mean, it was like if you want something really gruesome, you had to just jump both feet into adult horror. Like I jumped right into the deep end of the pool.
There was no middle. And that's what I'm so thankful for now is that the kids of the up and coming readers have middle grade horror. They have YA horror. So
Yes.
Mhm.
they're so lucky and they have no clue. They get to read horror for their age and up all the way until they finally meet Mr. King.
Yeah.
Like I didn't have that. It was a baby step and then your head is under the water.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I was interested in your talk about the audiobooks because I love audiobooks, but I only listen to audiobooks that I've already read the book. So then I'm in it for the performance. And it was interesting to me, Sadie, you said you can read the ebook or the book, the physical book, and the listening to it at the same time. But what I found interesting about horror is that it's in every format as well. Like it's in graphic novels as well, which brings the pictures to our eyeballs in a different way, right? So, like, say, did you read comic books that are horror genres?
Yeah, I do love graphic novels. I have quite an extensive collection of horror graphic novels. One of my favorites is Junji Ito. I don't know if anybody is familiar with his work, but essentially he writes like short stories. So a lot of his books are anthologies, and they're just short stories that are, comic book style. And it took me a minute to realize that you read, from the one corner to the next and you snake down the page because he's from Japan, and it is like so gross. Like the illustrations are so gross, and the stories are really creepy. And then I read a lot of Joe Hill's graphic novels, like Lock and Key, is really great, and Also, he wrote Nosferatu, and then he wrote a companion graphic novel called Wraith, which is like a continuation of that story. And then Through the Woods by Emily Carroll is really amazing. That's like really Edgar Allan Poe style storytelling, but with beautiful artwork to illustrate the stories. So yeah, I do love horror in all its formats. I don't watch horror movies mostly. I do watch some, like I talked about Sinners, and I've seen Hereditary, and but like some of your more classic, iconic stuff, like all the slashers and Nightmare on Elm Street, no, like I don't watch that kind of stuff. It's too much for me.
I don't either. I told you earlier, I'm a total weenie. But what about something like Howl's Moving Castle? Do you consider that horror?
So that's interesting. I do consider there's a lot that I consider horror. And Howl's Moving Castle is a good example, and also like Pan's Labyrinth, I
Hmm.
consider to be horror because it has like fantasy elements, doesn't mean there isn't an undercurrent of horror. So I always tell people horror is where you find it, and if you were terrified or scared, then that's horror. And I don't like to gatekeep that for anyone. If someone comes to me and says like, well, like for instance, I put in my book, Beloved by Toni Morrison, because it terrified me when I was a girl. When I first read it, I was like, I knew about enslaved people and I knew about slavery in American history, but then reading it from the perspective of the enslaved and just the gruesome realities of what happened was more than like my brain could handle. Like it really scared me. And then later people were like, it is horror. It has a ghost in it. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. Beloved is a ghost. Like it's horror. So I think it's just a conversation that we have where with other people and what terrifies them.
Hmm. And what about we were talking, we've talked about this before, Jody, in like some of our in-person programs, but what is going on right now that horror is having such a moment? And are you okay?
Sorry. Oh yeah. Someone just walked into the room and I was like, no, no.
Okay, so let me think. Horror is having a moment. It's been having a moment for a while, like a decade or so, I think. But what do you think is happening that is causing more and more people to embrace horror, even though they might not have been a fan before?
So I do like to tell people that I can essentially build a bridge from horror to any genre that you prioritize or have a preference for. So if somebody tells me that they love historical fiction, I can point them to horror that is historical. If they tell me that they love fantasy, I can point them to fantasy books. And I think that this has been true all along, but I do think there's more availability on the market right now. Every Tuesday is publishing day, and we get a dozen or more new books on the market and from a wide variety of voices. And so, like, Jody and I were talking about niche subgenres. So, if somebody just has a really, really niche passion for like mycelium or mushrooms or whatever, I have horror for that. Like, I have horror for everything. Like, if somebody says, well, it just doesn't appeal to me because it's too scary, like you said, I think it's too scary. Well, the gothic is more than scares and jump scares and blood and gore and gross stuff. You can jump into Laura Purcell's The Silent Companions, and that's horror, but there's nothing like super gross and bloody like you would
It
think.
doesn't have to have the blood and the guts to be
Yeah.
horror.
Yeah,
Like
it's
that's a
just like
whole separate thing.
a quiet sense of dread,
Yep.
a unsettling feeling, a tension that, something's in the room with you, all of that constitutes horror.
Hmm. So, what would you, Carrie asks, would you put authors as a cozy horror? Which authors are currently writing great cozy horror?
I love that question because there was this really hot debate online about if cozy horror actually exists.
I think
And
it does.
it totally does because if you move it to the cinematic and you think about movies like The Lost Boys, if The Lost Boys comes on, which is a horror film, if it comes on, I'm gonna watch that and it gives me cozy vibes because it has to do with like nostalgia. So I would say cozy would be Robert McCammon's Boy's Life. A lot of people would say, well, I don't know if that's horror, but there's ghosts, there's paranormal activity. It moves through the seasons, it's coming of age. It's about a boy growing up, like going through a lot of life's challenges, but also experiencing like some paranormal. Rachel Harrison, Jody mentioned earlier, she
Hmm.
has a book called Cackle that would be perfect for any
Oh.
cozy horror vibes. Basically, a young woman moves to a new rural area to get a fresh start, get away from her toxic relationship, and she is love bombed by the village witch, and wants to be best friends with her. And it's really cozy and really fun. There's spiders, there's darkness, but it's cozy. It's got good cozy vibes. A lot of witchy books lean into cozy vibes, like Briar Book of the Dead by A.G. Slatter has ghosts and some tension and some anxious feelings, but it's also very cozy and autumnal. Yeah.
Hmm. So, Christine mentions that the conversation was among men. Women know cozy horror, but I want to dig back into that a little bit. We'll just have a couple more minutes about about that moment that horror is having and that increase of women writers in the last decade as well. What is the correlation there? Because there has to be.
Yeah, don't you love the fact too that we're getting so much like translated horror too? I don't think there was very much of it on the market, and then you had like Mariana Enriquez come out with some of her books got translated. You had Augustina Bazterrica come out with Tender as the Flesh, which blew up on TikTok. And so suddenly publishers are like, maybe there's something to, having women in translation over here. So I love that. I love that that's having a moment. And the thing of it is women have always been around. And women have always been reading it. So I think that women are the biggest purchasers and readers of books. It's just a fact. If you look at my Instagram and you look at my profile, there's a pink and a purple wheel that tells you like how much of your people are watching you that are men and how much are women. I'm almost a predominantly female watched account. There are some men that, gravitate toward my account, but you would stereotypically think like men are the ones reading horror, but it's just not the case. They are, but not as much as women. And I think the more horrific it is outside the walls of our home, like it is right now, the more women are leaning into reading about women surviving horrible things. It just makes sense. We want to read what we're experiencing.
Yep. And I've always heard that horror is very cathartic, both for the writer and the reader, around being in a safe place and reading about somebody surviving horrific things.
And
um,
trauma,
and trauma,
yes.
right? But also, the one thing I've always said to Jody, like when we have our in-person programs, is that you see all kinds of people coming to these programs, like people that almost never come to libraries. Young people, people on the LGBTQ spectrum, women, older women, young women. All of it's just like such an amazing community. Have you found that as well?
I have, and it makes me feel so happy that we can have a conversation around books and our preferences and horror, and we can have that conversation together about things that we're enjoying. And a conversation about women in horror or my book about women in it doesn't have to be exclusionary. It's very inclusive, like not all the time are women writing stories about other women. Like sometimes women are writing stories about men, so it's for everyone. Horror is for everyone, and everyone needs to be represented. And it's great that we're seeing that representation of queerness in our horror books with queer authors, and that we're having more people of color in this genre. Like reading the Gothic tends to be very like centered in Britain, and it's so great that we're getting books set in Jamaica and Japan. Like it's an explosive, amazing time for horror right now.
Yeah, I mean, have you seen Get Out?
Yes.
It's like, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Would
So
that have been made like 15, 20 years ago?
right.
I
Right.
don't know, but so fun. Well, thank you so much, Sadie, for being here for this amazing conversation. I've learned so much, and I'm definitely going to be picking up this book and reading it from back front to cover to back because Jody did such a good job of explaining like everything that happens in this book. It sounds amazing.
Get your pen out because you got to make check marks as you're going.
Oh, I will.
Oh,
Although I will never write in a library book, so I'm going to have to buy it.
I love that. Well, I also want to thank everybody that showed up in the to watch us, and just thank you to the Ashland Library, and thank you to Jody. Like, I love talking about horror. I could do it all day.
We bow to you, our queen.
That's right. Mother horror. Jody, thank you so much for offering to moderate it. I just got to sit back, relax, and enjoy this really wonderful show.
It's always amazing to talk to Sadie. So anytime I need 5 minutes alone with her and just like unleash.
I was going to say, you might want one, Sadie. Like maybe.
It's fine. It's fine. You can stalk me, Jody.
It's okay if she has permission. So yes, thank you to everybody who's been here. And I hope you have a wonderful night and happy reading and no nightmares for you.
Lots of nightmares. Bye.
Bye, everybody.